How's it going, film and TV fans? Welcome back to a very special video, and before we move any further into this video, happy James Bond Day. Yes, it is Global James Bond Day today, 5th of October 2022, but 5th of October is the date. And that date is chosen for the Bond Day because that is the day that, all the way back in 1962, the very first James Bond film, Dr. No, premiered. Now, as you may possibly have figured out, considering a few different things, if you do the math, 1962 was 60 years ago. So it has been 60 years since the premiere of the original James Bond film, 60 years of Bond on the screen. Obviously about, I think it's 9 more years before that of Bond in the books, because the first book came out in 1953. So around 71 years of the James Bond character existing in total, or not even that, 69 years of the James Bond character itself existing, but 60 years of Bond on film. And throughout those 60 years we've seen 25 films, 6 actors, 2 unofficial films, many composers, Bond girls, cars, locations and all that stuff. And throughout that we've all been taken through a massive joyride. I know Bond has been a massive part of my life personally. I've been a Bond fan for 12 years now, 12 plus years, so relatively new in this community, but I've sort of, obviously I have some nostalgia with the early ones that I saw, such as Goldfinger, Die Another Day, Casino Royale, The Man with the Golden Gun, and of course the most nostalgia towards Skyfall specifically, because that movie is the first one I saw on the big screen 10 years ago now. But Goldfinger is one I think out of the others I have the most nostalgia from, and I remember the most well. So it's been an interesting ride, you know. Obviously, throughout the 25 films, Dr. No, From Russia of Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun, The Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, A View to a Kill, The Living Daylights, License to Kill, GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, Die Another Day, Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre, and of course the most recent installment in the franchise, No Time to Die. We've seen thick and thin through happen, many a car chase, many more stuff, and you know, we've seen the studio itself, you know, go through you know, some issues itself. You know, originally it was United Artists that put out the Bond movies. But UA fell into some legal issues and were bought by MGM in the early 80s, I think, just before Octopussy came out. Octopussy was the first one to be put out by MGM of the franchise. And then in the early 90s, MGM itself fell into some legal troubles, which stopped, you know, the production of the then untitled 17th film in the James Bond franchise, GoldenEye, entering production. Although it could have been very different when it did enter production, it wouldn't have been GoldenEye, it would have been Timothy Dalton's third film. But again, because of the legal wise, that stopped. And more recently, MGM found itself in some very interesting struggles. However, to get itself out of that one, it was recently purchased by huge conglomerate Amazon, which is why all the James Bond films are now streaming for a limited time on Amazon Prime Video. It would be nice to have Amazon Prime Video be the permanent home of 007, but it's not going to happen. Anyway, throughout the 25 films, we've seen so many different directors come and go, from Terence Young to Guy Hamilton to Lewis Gilbert to Peter R. Hunt to John Glenn, Martin Campbell, Roger Spottiswoode, Michael Apted, Lee Tamahori, Mark Forster, Sam Mendes, and of course Cary J. Fukunaga. And those are just the official Bond films. Of course, we have to celebrate the 3 unofficial James Bond films, one of which came out before any of the official ones, and that was 1954's Casino Royale, and the other one being 1967's Casino Royale, directed by 6 different people. You love to see it. And 1983's Never Say Never Again, directed by Irvin Kershner. Obviously, Casino Royale, 1967, being directed by Ken Hughes, John Huston, Joseph McGrath, Robert Parrish, Val Guest, and Richard Tammeridge. So, you know, a large set of people. And each film, people have different views of. I personally, you know, I used to hate Octopussy, but I quite like it now. I used to, you know, I used to think Die Another Day was the best one. That was an interesting time to be in existence for me. But yeah, Bond is a very special thing for me. I don't know if you know, it's my favourite film franchise. You know, it's the longest running film franchise in film history, so it's great to see that celebrated in such a brilliant way. There's been many different events, including the just released Sound of 007 documentary that I'm about to watch. Among other things, charity auctions, you know, the lot, you name it. It's been a tumultuous history, and throughout that time we've had also, as well as multiple different directors and actors, we've had many different composers, from Monty Norman and John Barry on the original Doctor No, from John Barry on From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, on A Majesty's Secret Service and Dumb Stuff Forever, to George Martin on Live and Let Die, back to Barry on Golden Gun, and then Marvin Hamlish on Spy Who Loved Me, back to Barry on Moonraker, Bill Conti on For Your Eyes Only, back to Barry on Octopussy, and then Barry continued through A View to a Kill and Living Daylights before not coming back and having Living Daylights be his final film, and have Michael Kamen do License to Kill and Eric Serra do Goldeneye, and then David Arnold from Tomorrow Never Dies through to Quantum of Solace, Thomas Newman on Skyfall and Spectre, and Hans Zimmer on No Time to Die. So an interesting plethora of people behind the scenes, but there is a few people that you need to really think about in terms of the reason why we're sat here so many years later. Obviously Ian Fleming, the writer of the Bond novels, but two other men immediately come to mind when talking about James Bond's transition into the screen, and those men are producers Harry Saltzman and Albert R. Broccoli, the man who, I think undoubtedly without him we would not be sat here celebrating 60 years of Bond films. We'll be celebrating 10 years of them, or 10 of them, give or take, because he was the one who pushed through most of the issues, and when he passed away in 1996, his daughter and stepson, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, took over. So, and it's been with them ever since. They've had an up and down battle, but yeah, it's been a fantastic ride for this film, and for the whole franchise. It was great to see it celebrated at the Oscars. It is the longest running franchise in film history. And another thing that I've been able to experience this past year for the first time, and will continue this evening, is all 25 official Bond films were screened in 4K across multiple cinema chains in the United Kingdom. All the way back in April, Doctor No screened, and tonight, this evening, that all comes to an end with No Time to Die. It's been a journey with the cinema films as well, experiencing most of them for pretty much literally all of them except for the last three. So, you know, and even still seeing Skyfall in the cinema again was a walk down memory lane for me, and Spectre was too, and One No Time to Die, you can hear my thoughts about it being a year since that film came out in that video, but yeah, it's been a tremendous year for Bond. It's been a tremendous 60 years for Bond, you know, all the way from Sean Connery all the way through to Daniel Craig. Sean Connery being the first Bond, you had George Lazenby, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and of course Daniel Craig, and to the future, the next Bond actor, all the Bond games as well. You can't forget James Bond in other media, including obviously the books aside, all comic books, games. There's been, you know, obviously all the music and the soundtracks and stuff like that. Bond is an important part of cinema history, and I'm glad to have been even the smallest part witness to said legacy. And who knows, maybe one day involvement in said legacy, but I doubt it. Thank you so much for watching. Go watch your favourite Bond film and raise a martini, shaken but not stirred, to everyone's favourite super spy.